Our scripture this morning, Genesis chapter 27, beginning with verses 1 through 18, and then continuing on 18 to 27. When Isaac grew old, his eyes were so bad he could see only shadows. He called his eldest son, Esau, to his side. Isaac to his son, Esau said, "I'm here." "Isaac, I see that I'm growing old now. I may die any day." "Esau, take your hunting weaponry, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. Then prepare for me some savory food, just the way I like it. Bring it to me to eat, so that I may speak a blessing over you before I die." Rebekah was listening at the doorway as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau went into the field to hunt for game to bring to his father, Rebekah called her son Jacob. Rebekah saying, "I heard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me game and prepare for me some savory food to eat, so I can bless you before the Eternal, before I die.' My son, listen and do what I tell you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 of the best young goats. I can prepare the savory food for your father from them. I know just how he likes it. Then you take it to your father to eat, so that he speaks a blessing over you before he dies." Jacob to Rebekah his mother, "Look, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I have smooth skin. If father reaches out and touches me, he'll figure it out and think I'm mocking him. Then I'll bring a curse upon myself instead of a blessing." Rebekah said, "If that happens, then let the curse be on me, not you. Just listen to me. Go and get them for me." Jacob went and brought the young goats to his mother, who prepared a mouth-watering meal just as his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were with her in the house, and she put them on her younger son Jacob. She affixed the skins of the young goats onto the back of his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she handed him the delicious food and the fresh bread she had prepared. Jacob went in to his father.
Continuing on in verse 18, Jacob said, "My father, I'm here. Who are you, my son?" "Well, I'm Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you asked. Now sit up and eat the game I brought for you so that you can speak a blessing over me." "How did you manage to hunt the game and cook the food so quickly, my son?" The Eternal One, your God, gave me success today." "Well, please come over here so I can feel you, my son, so that I know it's really you, Esau." So Jacob went over to his father, and Isaac reached out and felt his hands. He was a bit confused. Your voice sounds like Jacob's, but your hands, they feel like Esau's." Because of the young goat's fur on the back of his hands, his father didn't recognize him. And so Isaac proceeded to bless Jacob instead of Esau. "Are you really my son Esau?" "I am." "Then bring the food to me, and I'll eat my son's game and give you my blessing." Jacob brought Isaac the food, and Isaac ate it. Then Jacob brought him some wine to drink. When he finished it, his father Isaac told him to approach. "Please come near and kiss me, my son." Jacob went over and kissed his father, and Isaac breathed in the scent of the outdoors on Esau's clothes. Then he gave Jacob the blessing, passing on the promise of God's covenant. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
just in case you're wondering, I had a rough night. The cat, whom I love, decided that he wanted to spend the majority of the night outside the doors upstairs. Meow. Meow. I am not a morning person. Now, it might be hard for some of you to believe because I'm always so bubbly and energetic on a Sunday morning. But you don't understand the process that it takes to get there. There's a lot of prayer involved. Mornings aren't necessarily my thing, but as an adult, right, sometimes we don't always have a choice in the matter. The alarm clock goes off, buzz, 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 or the radio, and it's time to get up. Well, we can always hit the snooze button. That buys us a few more minutes, right? Have you ever looked at an alarm clock? The snooze button is the largest button on the entire thing. As soon as the alarm goes off, we have choices to make. Do I hit the snooze button, or do I get up? And then we go about our day, we get up, we get a shower, we go to work, we go to school, we do whatever it is that we do. We make all these different choices. What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to react? And then we eat, we brush our teeth, we go to bed. Make sure we set our alarm for the next morning. That's our day. And tonight, when I lay my head down on the pillow, I won't be thinking as much about the fact that the alarm went off. I won't be thinking as much about the way the cat woke me up. What will be on my mind and what will determine how I feel at the end of the day will be everything that happened between the alarms. See, the beginning doesn't always determine the end. It's the middle that matters. Today we're going to be in Genesis, believe it or not, chapter 27. So if you have a Bible, please turn to Genesis chapter 27. No family is perfect, are they? Are there any perfect families here in attendance this morning? Yeah, that's what I thought. No family is perfect. Mine isn't, yours isn't. And neither was Isaac's. Isaac, the son of promise, one of the big three in the Old Testament, and yet his family wasn't perfect. In Genesis chapter 27, it starts off by saying, when Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man, don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your weapons, your quiver and bow, go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Isaac, I'm going to croak at any moment. These could be my last breaths on earth, and I want to make sure that I set things right. I want to change the world. I just want a good meal. You remember, we've been talking a little bit. We followed a guy named Abraham. Everybody say Abraham? Abraham. We followed a guy named Abraham for several years of his life, and it seemed like years of ours, right? We followed Abraham for a long time, and finally he gets a son named Isaac. And Abraham gets to the end of his life. You'll remember this a few chapters back. Abraham gets to the end of his life, and he has one last mission he wants to accomplish, one last goal. He wants to make sure that God's promises are carried on, that his son Isaac gets a bride. So he sends a messenger out to go find one. A very divine mission, a very godly task, and yet his son Isaac is more concerned about getting a last meal. He's more concerned about the desires of his gut. Now, you know all about Isaac. Everybody say Isaac. You know all about Isaac because we spent so much time, and he's a fairly familiar character if you haven't been with us. Isaac was the son of promise. Abraham had to wait 25 years for Isaac. And then when he finally gets him, you remember in Genesis 22, God tells him to take him up on a mountain and do what? Sacrifice him. Lay him over an altar and sacrifice him. Your only son, whom you love. First time the word love is mentioned in Scripture. And Abraham marches him up because he's following God's orders. He realizes that obedience to God is worth more than anything else. And Isaac faithfully follows his father. And then God provides an alternative, a way out. Isaac was the one who prayerfully waited for his wife to come. And when he finally saw her, he ran to her. Isaac was the one who was there by his wife's side whenever she wasn't able to have children. And they would pray together, God, we don't understand. Help us to understand what's going on. Isaac, the man of faith, had such a good beginning, a good start. But he's not finishing well. He's more interested about what's going on in here. Now, if you continue on in Genesis 27 with verse 5, now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, bring me some game, prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock, bring me 2 choice young goats, so that I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Did you catch the language in Genesis 27? Look with me, if you will. Verse 5, Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. Now, I'm pretty sure they were both involved. And yet Esau is classified as his son. Verse 6, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, again, they were twins. And yet there's this favoritism. Dad likes the older boy, mom likes the younger boy. Dad likes the outdoorsman, mom likes the indoorsman. Dad likes outdoor game, mom likes home cooking. His son and her son. You remember Rebekah, don't you? Abraham sends this messenger out to go find a wife for his son Isaac. And he goes back to Abraham's hometown, home people. And on the way he prays, God, if you would just help me out here. I need you to show me who this chosen bride is. So as I come to the town, I'm going to sit down, and I want you to have this girl give me some water to drink. And not just that, but have her water my camels as well. Do you remember this? Nod if you do. Okay. And before the servant could even finish the prayer, Rebekah skips up with her jar on her head. She fills up her container, and she looks, she sees. She goes, "Here, let me give you some water." And then she proceeds to water his camels, and not just a gulp, but enough so that they drank until they were full, till they were finished. Rebekah had such a servant's heart. That's all she wanted to do. It didn't seem like a big deal to her. She was just being nice. Rebekah faithfully leaves her parents' household so that she can get married to this guy, this distant relative in this faraway land. Full of faith and trust. Such promise. But now she's an eavesdropper. Now she's a deceiver. Now she's playing favorites in her own home. Now she's trying to trick her soulmate, her husband, the one that she had left everything for. Beginnings don't always determine the end, do they? It's those choices in the middle that matter. Kids rebel. That's just the way that it is. I wanted to strangle our cat this morning. He woke me up. Then, he was all over my feet all morning. I'm tripping. I'm trying to get ready in the morning. I'm already frustrated and tired. I go downstairs, and usually on Sunday morning, he sits on my lap while I eat cereal, okay? Now, I'm eating cereal. I'm all done. And it's just a bowl of just a little bit of milk. Cat, I'm trying to get up. And he jumps up, knocks the spoon out of my hand. It bounces off the bowl. Milk goes all over my pants. I go into the bathroom to get the lint roller so that I can get all this cat hair off of the black suit. The cat comes into the bathroom, and wouldn't you know it, he decides he wants to go after the tape that I had just put in the trash can. So he reaches up on the trash can and knocks it over. And trash goes all over the floor. Sometimes, no matter how much you do, no matter how well you prepare them, kids just rebel. They do things that we don't always agree with, right? You think you've done a good job, you take them to church every Sunday, their youth group every week, and yet then they get this opportunity to make choices and they do their own thing. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and He made man and woman, and He said that they were very good, and He put them in a garden with all sorts of opportunity and all sorts of beauty and wonder around them, and He gave them choice. And they chose to rebel. Kids rebel, don't we? We find out that it's the middle that matters. Genesis chapter 27. Is everybody still with me? Yeah. Okay, good. It's time for the con. Jacob. He goes and verse 14, he gets the animals, he brings them to his mother, and she prepares some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with goat skins. Now hold up just a second. Fellas. If your hands and neck look like a young goat, we need to introduce you to our friend Mr. Gillette, okay? Because, I'm sorry, I don't care if he's blind or not. A goat? That's ridiculous. Where in the world was that? Verse 17. Then Rebekah hands to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Please sit, eat some of my game." Isaac said to his son, How did you find it so quickly? I just sent you out." "Well, the Lord your God gave me success." Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so that I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac. He touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He didn't recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he blessed him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. "Well, bring me some of the game," and he brought it to him, as well as some wine. He said, "Kiss me," and he did. He smelled Esau's clothes. He smelled that outdoor smell. It was fresh pine. It was mountain breeze. I don't know what it was. It was animal stuff. I don't know. but it smelled like the outdoors. And then he proceeds to bless him. There were all sorts of things that could have gone wrong here, and yet Rebekah and Jacob had thought through every aspect. The feel of it. The food needed to be right. The smell needed to be right. How did you find it so quickly? Isaac asks. Your God helped me. Well, like Isaac is going to rebuke that. Like he's going to say anything. God can't work that fast. Did you notice in Genesis 27, there are all sorts of characters involved. Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau. You know the one character who doesn't say a word? God. The one character who isn't a part of any conversation in Genesis 27? God. And yet the thing about lies and sin is that after you start one thing, you've got to go one step further and one step further and go bigger and broader and better. And if you bring God into it, nobody can argue with him. I mean, surely we never use God as a crutch for our own issues, our own behaviors now. I mean, there's a story of a young woman who was married to a youth pastor. And this young woman was talking about her husband. She said, he's a great man. He's dedicated to the ministry. He felt called at a young age. And I remember he would just spend all his time making sure we had the best lessons for youth group, making sure that we had the best games for youth group. He would go out each night and he would work in the teen shelters and he would work in after-school programs. And his phone was always on so that if anybody ever needed him, he was always there to answer the phone, always ready to leave at any moment. He was completely and totally sold out for his ministry. And that's why I had to leave him. See, sometimes we spend so much time trying to help everybody else that we abandon our most important ministry, the one that's in our own home. Isaac was so focused on all this other stuff going on around him, the Hittites and all these people around him, and he didn't see the turmoil, the trouble that was happening in his own home. I appreciate everybody who ministers here at Park Street Church. I appreciate everybody who donates their time and gives their time to any goodwill, any humanitarian effort. But hear me when I say this. Your most important ministry is at home. Isaac lost sight of that somewhere along the way. And so he blesses Jacob. He pulls it off. Isaac knew that God had said that Jacob was going to get the blessing, but he was going to try and give it to his son Esau anyway. And yet he still got tricked into doing it. Jacob, he rushes back after receiving this blessing, this continuation of the promise. You remember the promise, the one that God gave to Abraham. You will be a blessing. I will bless you. I'll give you many descendants. You will be blessed with land. This blessing was passed from generation to generation. Jacob rushes back just in time because his older brother Esau walks through the door. Now that would have been awkward to explain. Jake? Yeah? Why do you have goat hair all over you? I was cold. Really? Why are you wearing my toga for? Matches my sandals? And somehow he manages that awkward situation, and Esau is all fired up. He's gonna get the blessing. Now he had already given away his birthright. You remember this a couple weeks ago. He shrugged off this promise of God, shrugged off his inherited birthright for a bowl of soup. Do you remember this? So he comes in, he doesn't talk to Mom, doesn't talk to Jacob, he just prepares the food. He's going to have a private conversation with Dad, getting this all ready. He gets it ready, he comes in, he says, Dad, hey, how's it going? I have some food here, so why don't you sit down, scarf it down, and we'll hop right to this blessing thing. Who are you? I'm Esau. I'm your son. Ready to be blessed, Dad. And did you notice in Genesis 27, verse 33, Isaac trembled violently. Are you ever shaken when you get caught? When you realize that you've done something terribly wrong? Isaac trembled violently and said, Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him. And indeed, he will be blessed. See, back then, when somebody said something, they meant it. Words had all sorts of power back then. You don't take back your promises. You don't say, oh, my bad, I meant to give it to this guy. Once it's said, it's done. Esau heard his father's words, verse 34. He burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, Bless me too, my father. But he said, Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. Isn't he rightly called Jacob? Isn't he rightly called the heel? He deceived me twice, you know. He tricked me into giving away my birthright once, and now he took my blessing again. Well, we know that's not exactly how the story went down, right? Esau was hungry, and he just gave up his birthright for a bowl of soup. There was no trickery involved. Haven't you reserved any blessing for me? Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants. I have sustained him with grain and new wine, so what can I possibly do for you, my son? Do you only have one blessing, my father? Bless me too! Then Esau wept aloud. Esau wasn't interested in the things of God. Shrugs them off. Whatever. Rather have soup. Rather fill my belly. He doesn't care about being a part of what God has promised. He doesn't care about following God's will for his life. He doesn't care about this traditional, historic faith that his parents and his grandparents have had. He doesn't care about any of that. He wants the money. He wants the resources. He wants the land. He wants all of it that comes with following God. Bless me too. We cannot receive the blessings of God unless we are willing to be a part of God's promise. Faith really isn't an option. If you believe, if you serve, if you obey, then heaven. If you don't, it doesn't matter how much you pound your feet. Bless me too. Me too. I want some too. Jesus says in John 14, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. There's one way. Me too, me too. And so Esau is terribly upset. And he's so worked up that he starts talking about killing his brother Jacob. If Esau can't have the good stuff, the promises, the wealth, the money, the inheritance, if he can't have it, then nobody will. Rebekah, who always has her ear to the wall, hears this and says, well, your brother's going to try and kill you, so you need to run away. And we need to find a way to explain this to your father, so I will go tell him that he needs to send you away to go find a wife. Rebekah's very clever. See, no family is perfect. No one is perfect, are they? It doesn't matter if we've had a good beginning or a bad one. Some of us have had a rough start. Maybe we didn't have the best childhood. Maybe we didn't have the best upbringing. Maybe we didn't have the most opportunity, the most chances at the good things of life. And we think, man, I'm just going to be stuck in this rut. I'm going to be just like them. I'm going to have a difficult life. But the beginning doesn't determine the end. It's the choices that we make in the middle that matter. Maybe you are like Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Esau. You've had a good beginning, a good upbringing, a good start. Solid family support. Plenty of opportunity. A church family that loves and supports you. But you've let it fall a little. You've let it stray. Romans 3:23 says all have fallen and we're all short of the glory of God. But the gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ. See, there are ways to turn things around. There is a way to turn things around. No one is perfect. But we will be judged by what we do. We're saved by faith through grace, right? We understand that, but we are judged by works. And judgment comes to this family as well. Isaac trembles violently when he realizes that he has been caught. That what he was doing was selfish, that it was wrong, that it wasn't God's will, that he hadn't prayed or talked to God or thought about this at all. Rebekah, the deceiver, the eavesdropper, she sends away her son, her favorite son, Jacob, and yet she doesn't realize that she will never, ever see Jacob on earth again. She'll die before he comes back. Jacob, well, how are we going to get away with this? I mean, I have a boyish face. I can't grow hair. How are we going to cover this up so that Dad buys into it? Jacob, the deceiver, the heel, he would himself be deceived, losing roughly 14 years of his life because of a deception. We'll discover that here in a few weeks. And Esau, the hairy one, the one who shrugs off the things of God, the one who just doesn't care. He would ultimately become an enemy of God and his people. Esau's descendants would constantly be at odds. with God's people. The beginning doesn't determine who you are or who you will be. Maybe you had a great start, maybe you've strayed, maybe you need to rewrite history and overcome some things in your past. But the truth of the matter is that we live our lives between alarms. I can get up here on a Sunday morning and I can deliver a 3-point sermon where all the points start with the same letter. I can have an interesting prop that is really motivating, that you will remember. I can include a 2-minute video that will make you chuckle. But the truth of the matter is that probably, roughly a month from now, nobody will remember the prop, the message, or the video. What will affect your life and what will change it is what happens between sermons, between Sundays, between the wake-up calls, between alarms. The beginning doesn't determine the outcome. It doesn't determine the ending. It doesn't have to determine your life. It's the middle that matters. And that starts right now. God, I thank you for today. And I ask, as we walk through this life, as we walk through this week, that we would hear what you're trying to tell to us, what you're trying to say to us. That we need to protect the integrity of our homes. That while serving you here at church and in our community and all over the world is important, what goes on at home is perhaps the most important ministry that we can be a part of. God, help us to overcome our difficult starts, our bad beginnings, our rough mornings. Help us dedicate the days to you. Every choice that we make at work, at school, and in church, and in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in the grocery stores, in the Walmarts, and the malls, every choice that we make matters. And it leads us down a road that takes us to an ultimate end. And God, I pray that we would realize where it is that we're headed. And if we need to change that you would help us to do so. Guide us this morning, Father. And it's in your Son's name that we pray.